Welcome again to another episode of Life Empowered. And a really unique, cool story is I get to speak with Celeste today, and she actually runs a business called Life Empowered. Ha, how cool is that? But we're going to start way before then, and then we'll touch on that towards the end. But Celeste, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It is definitely an honor and a privilege. I want to meet you as we did at the Women's Leadership event, but then also for the opportunity to be here with you. I'm grateful.
Yeah, I got the chance to meet Celeste. I was at a women's leadership conference and she was one of the speakers in the breakout and I was a speaker in a different breakout. But again, hearing different stories of ways to connect to you and help empower you is why I invite these guests and why I do this, because it really doesn't do anything for me. I'm not selling anything, but I get inspired. I get encouraged by hearing other people's struggles and journeys. And again, what did they do to make it through? And how did they get to where they are today, no matter where that is? So Celeste, your story, obviously we all have lots of stories, but the story we're going to go to today with you is, so you were leading, it seemed like a successful career, correct? What was it that you were doing for a big portion of your life for your career?
Well, I have been in corporate America for probably 15, 20 years. I started out, oddly enough, when I first finished high school, I wanted to be a nurse. And so I was going to UWM for nursing and got married young. And I also took a job as a certified nursing assistant. On that journey as a CNA, I actually ended up working on the hospice unit. So if you could imagine an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid coming to work every day, literally to take care of people who are in the last stages, hours, days, weeks of their life. And that was very, very tough for me. So I moved out of that and I was in banking for 10 years. And then I moved into project and portfolio management, more IT work for maybe the last 5 years of my corporate career. Throughout that career, though, I always had a lot of passion for helping, training, developing, coaching others. And so that's always been kind of a thread that has followed me, honestly, throughout my whole life.
Yes, obviously, just that little bit, there was something in you to be a helper. You wanted to care for other people. And of course, nursing is very admirable, and most people know about nursing. Nursing is about helping others and being that awesome, support to people who are going through different situations. So you have this journey and you're living your life, you are married, and what happens that kind of turns your world upside down?
I would tell you, I found myself living what I thought was the dream, right? So amazing husband, 2 kids. In terms of what society would consider success, I definitely was that, right? You have the 2 cars, you build a house from the ground up, you have 2 great kids, successful marriage. So all the things that were in place. The other thing is that I worked for a fairly prominent company. So the branding was good all the way around. But one day I got up and went to work and it was a regular day and I was doing what I normally do. And by the end of the day, midday, I got a call and they were eliminating my position. Now, I understand from a business perspective, being a business owner, that these things are not personal. I understand that it's business, but it's also easy to say that when you're not on the receiving end of that phone call, the one being transitioned out of an organization. And that was the thing that shook me. And that was my second time actually in my corporate career being laid off. And it was particularly weird for me too, because my mother worked a job, right, for 30 years. My grandmother worked a job for 35 years. And so you get in a company and you stay there and you retire.
Right.
That wasn't my story twice.
Right. So tell us a little bit, what was it like those 2 times being laid off or let go or whatever nice term they put for
right side.
Firing you, you're done, goodbye, right? That's how it feels. Like you said, you understand business, but you're a person. And so in a way, it's like a slap. What is that?
Mhm.
What are those emotions? And do you start to question your value? Do you question your worth when you go through that? What's that like?
Absolutely. And thank you for asking that. And I want to go back for just a moment because the first time that I got laid off, we knew it was coming, right? They were doing some reorganization, some restructuring in the organization. So my charge was to apply for another job within the organization because my job was being eliminated. There weren't any other jobs that I was interested in. So that job, I had about 30-day notice, right? 30, 45, maybe 60 days that my job was ending. The second time, I literally walked in that morning and by 2 o'clock, I didn't have a job. So there was no notice that it was coming. And I only lift that because sometimes when you experience a thing a certain way, you say, well, if they would have told me it was coming, it wouldn't have stung as much. And my thing is, listen, I've experienced it both ways. It sucked both ways. Neither one was was edifying, was helpful for me. But that second time, just to your question, it made me ask myself, like, what's wrong with me? Here I am twice doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing, um, thinking I'm showing up late, I'm showing up early, staying late, putting in weekend hours. I would go to work in the morning, I would come home, cook dinner, feed the kids, feed the husband, and then get back on the computer to work, trying to stay on top of things. And then they still didn't want me, right? So what's wrong with me? Why am I not valuable enough? Two times in my corporate career to stay on as an employee. And so it really, really shook me. And while I don't like to use the word depression, for me, I do know that I went to a darker place, right? I tend to be very happy and optimistic. That was not my story at that time. It was tough, but I learned a lot. And so, go ahead.
What was it like, do you think, for your husband and at home? So personally, you're dealing with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And again, we want to be logical, like you said, the business, all these things, but yet we can never just cut off our emotions and say, hey, you just stay there. I don't need to feel you. You listen to what I
Mhm,
know is fact. So you have a relationship, you live with
mhm.
someone.
Yeah.
How did that struggle impact your relationship at home too?
You know, he is, even to this day, very, very supportive. And so I had to lean on that, even though, sometimes when it's the truth, but the timing, you're not ready to hear the truth, is also a legitimate situation. And so I'm telling you, I thought I was going to retire from there. Like in my mind, I'm done, I'm wrapped up. Next 30 years, this is where I'm going to be. And one day he said to me, if they wouldn't have let you go, you would have never quit and you would have been in that same position for way too long. And when he said that, of course, I didn't like it, but the reality, the reality was that he was right. And that time opened up some awareness about me. And that's I can't wait to tell you that part, but that's the thing, that's where the shift happened. But I'll tell you something else that was funny just with regards to the family, because I told my kids, I said, hey, what would you think about, mom not working and just staying home with you guys? And my daughter was like, oh no, mama, you can't do that. You have to work. And so then I felt really bad because I don't have a job. I don't even have an option right now.
Uh-huh. Oh, so is this like middle school, high school age that she's saying this? Yeah.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So, okay, hey, I could be here for my kids. And they're like, yeah, no, no, go
Yeah,
to work.
please don't.
That's so typical, but obviously that was not helpful. Even that little bit, no matter what your logic told you, that didn't feel
Right,
good, right?
right,
Again, the
right.
logic and our feelings, they don't always line up, and it's a struggle and a
Absolutely.
process. And so obviously, like you said, this began a stirring, a process of
Hmm.
evaluation and
Hmm.
looking at you and life. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
what did that look like specifically for you?
And so, what I realized in that moment, because for me, again, the logical side is it's just a job. You can get a job, Celeste, you're educated. At that point, I actually was like 6 weeks away from my master's degree. I was graduating with a master's degree in finance, MBA with a focus in finance and in management. So essentially, two master's degrees. I have all this education, I have all this experience, but I don't have a job. And what I realized is that that thing shook me so that I had to do some serious introspective and ask myself, why? You know that you've brought all of this. You know that you have, and I'm a woman of faith. So I know that I have His grace on my life. I know that I have education, I have experience. What has happened that this thing has shaken me so? And what I learned is that I had defined myself by all of those things, right? So I was Celeste because of who my husband was. I was Celeste because of the job. I was Celeste because of the kids. I was Celeste because of the cars and the houses and all of that stuff. And so it really was, in my opinion now, this was God's way of getting my attention of, you need to understand who you are regardless of the stuff. And
Oh,
so that was the journey.
that is so good, because how many of us, I mean, I think everybody does. Some
Mhm.
people always stay there, but some people go through seasons where they start to define, like even you said, your dream job. I've had my house, I got my marriage, I got my job, I got all
Right.
the things. So that is defining us, but instead of just a part. Now, obviously, work takes up a huge majority of our time.
It does. Yep.
And so, in somewhat, it is natural that you kind of define yourself by that because it's such a huge part of you.
Mhm.
But it's not the work, it's who you are, what you bring to the work. And that is a totally different perspective. And that's really the shift that you were starting to make, and that so many need to make, because
Mhm.
you felt you were happy. You felt it was your dream job. You felt you would be there forever. So it's not like it was bad.
Mhm.
They said goodbye. But,
Right.
but you were also settling, is what you find, which I'm
Mhm.
sure you'll talk some more about, is because when we settle into that, we get comfortable. We all get our
Yep.
comfortable, our normals. And again, we can get comfortable with things that aren't great either, just long as, well, I can function. I'm living.
Yeah, you're familiar with it. Yep.
Right. I'm paying the bills. I'm doing my thing, whatever. You work for that vacation away to escape, and then go back to the grind. And,
Mhm.
work is sometimes a grind because it is work.
Mhm.
But if we change our perspective, are able to really see things more clearly, as you began to see, we get to bring ourselves into whatever work. It's not that job or this job or that company. I am who I am. This is what I have to offer. This is what I get to do. I feel good because I'm doing what I was made to do, instead of just going to a job and, yeah, I can do it. I have the skills, coming home with a paycheck. So there's definitely a shift and a difference, and it
Mhm.
happened overnight, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
what did this process look like for you in this journey of looking at yourself and separating and finding really more the truth about you?
Yeah. So there are actually quite a few things that happened. One thing that I had to do is reacclimate myself with Christ. And so that was me not going to the external things to define me, but it was really going to the Word of God saying, who do you say I am? Right. And that was important because for me, um, I said who I thought I was, and I was wrong. So let me just go to the person that knows, right? Let me go to the source and get it right. So that was one thing that I really had to do, and that just took a lot of, and I had time, right? So I didn't have to work. So there was this time of studying His Word, attending additional Bible study classes, praying and meditating, and just seeking Him at a different level. So that was one thing that I did. Another thing that I did was I had to spend time with me. So we talk about self-care. I was going to the gym every day. I was meeting more people. I was just expanding my horizon, because those are also ways that you can learn more about yourself. Those are ways that I learned more about me.
Well,
Um,
interaction with other people
yeah,
is not always comfortable. So that can show you things about yourself, some triggers,
yeah.
right? And then how you
Mhm,
respond to people. So those are huge. And then even those right people who see things in you that you
mhm.
can't see. Mhm.
Absolutely. So we had that. And then I also spent more time serving. So, where can I go and help pass up food, or where can I volunteer at? And it wasn't to say that my life was better than theirs and so that I could give, but it was to say, no matter how bad you think your life is, you can still find a way to provide service to someone else. So there was that. And then I think the last thing that I did, and probably the most pivotal, was I had to go through the process of healing, because I was really hurt. And I'll tell you what I did. My first book is called Looking Back, Then Moving Forward. And so I wrote a book, but that process, I literally had like a beach towel across my shoulders. And I sat at a chair, in my chair at a computer, and I spent the whole day writing. I wrote and I cried. And so one of the first things that I learned was that I have to be okay with feeling. As women, we're always just taught to be strong, and tears are a sign of weakness. I actually have that tears are a sign of strength, because we cry and we still do what we have to do. That's just another way to release some of the pressure, right? And so um, I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And so in 24 hours, I wrote my first book.
Wow.
But that was my healing process.
Mm.
So those were the
Even that
things that I did.
title, looking back and moving forward, people, culture,
Mhm,
move on, just forget what happened, move on. Well,
mhm,
what is the point of history? What is the
mhm,
point of studying history?
mhm,
Again, culturally, economically, history, and even our personal history,
mhm,
meant to learn. We're supposed to learn, and we don't always learn in the moment. It sometimes is looking back, as you said, and then
mhm.
right, moving forward. Those were choices. You looked back,
Yep,
what do I need to learn from there? And then you began to
yep,
move forward, because you can stay there, you can wallow, you can come up with all sorts of reasons, justifications of why the world is so horrible and I don't deserve this. All these things that we process and we can get stuck in. But so that book is so simple, but so accurate in what we need to do so many times in our life, looking back and moving forward.
absolutely.
And so as you
Yeah,
wrote that book, it was healing. So what did that process look like? And then how did you begin to move forward?
so I actually, when I described the book, I said there are three main premises of the book. The first was to learn life's lessons. The second is to apply life's lessons. And then the third is to help somebody else along the way. And so the way that the book is framed up, there's a chapter, there's a summary, there's a story, and then at the end of every chapter, there are questions for the reader to challenge themselves, right? So identify someone that you can share this information with, who you believe will learn something, or, what have you. And so, that process, though, was my challenge, right? Because as an executive coach, as a corporate trainer, I am that person that I don't want to ask you anything. I won't ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do. So if I am telling you to be a giver, then I want to lead out in giving, so that I can say, not that I just tell you to, not only did I tell you to do it, but I'm actually doing it as well. And so, part of the challenge was literally applying the lessons and hopefully showing up as a model for other people to do the same.
So you write this book as part of your healing process. And obviously, I assume you didn't write a book before this.
Correct. This was my first book.
So a labor of love and healing and process, right? And I
Mhm,
remember so often in my life, the word process was almost made me want to vomit sometimes, because
Mhm.
seriously, I'm so tired of that being the answer, or perseverance, right?
Mhm.
So you write this book, but so there's this transition of writing this book. So then what? How did you get to where you are now? What are the other steps of the process that birthed all that you do now?
So once I came into the realization that there was something more to me that wasn't limited by just the job, I decided to do something with what I had, right? So after I had lost the job, I had graduated college. Now I'm in the summer of 2012. Um, it's warm out, so I'm like, we can enjoy the summer. That's fine too. But I am a person that I have to be busy, right? I have to be, I have to be using my hands. And so I said, what can I do? What do I have? And so I literally um, made a couple flyers and threw them on social media for resume writing classes. At that point, I was looking for a job. I had great resume writing skills because I was doing it way too much. And so that's what I started doing. And that's actually how Life Empowered started, because um, I saw a need, I did it, and I threw it out there for free. So just finding those things to do, whether big or small, was the next step in the process for me to do what I knew that I could do. And that was helping people write resumes. From there, I started doing communication training. And then I got my first nonprofit job. And I've just been kind of going from there. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. And so I saw you did the John Maxwell training as well for coaching.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And so you're a consultant from them, meaning they approve of the work that you do, right? Is that what that means?
Not quite. So John Maxwell does have the training program, and I am certified through them.
Okay.
I actually went back. I did go back to corporate America for a while. And then I left again. And the last time that I left, I said, if I want to do life and power consulting full time, I want to be as prepared as possible. And so, because I wanted to do coaching, they have an extensive coaching program that they can use. They have a speaking program and a training program. And so I actually took the time to go through all three of the programs for my certification. Um, and so while I'm part of the John Maxwell team, but Life Empowered is its own entity. But because I went through the training, I also am able to use some of their products and services and things like that when I am going out into the field serving my clients.
Well,
So,
that sounds just awesome. I mean, obviously the journey was not, right? That process, the healing, the working through that. But again, looking at who are you? What are the gifts that you have? What are the trainings that you have? And how can I use them differently instead of in this little frame box? What are some other opportunities? And I love how you took a lot of what you were doing corporately,
mhm,
expanded your learning, learn some more, and how could you weave that all together to be you and help, and still way back to the beginning, always want to help people. So there you
mhm,
go. You're a coach, consultant, and lead people to help them do and be what they were made to be. And that makes me super
absolutely.
excited, because I love that. Any way that we can help others or show them their uniqueness or their skills and train them with new things or new opportunities so that they can live more life more to the fullest instead of survive. I feel that most of the world settles. They survive,
Mhm,
they get too comfortable, or they just it's too hard, or they just don't know or don't have the support. And obviously having a loving, supportive husband was a great
mhm,
asset in your journey, that you
mhm,
weren't alone.
mhm,
Sometimes that could be a friend, sometimes that
mhm,
could be a coach and a friend. I mean, there are so many
mhm.
resources out there to help us grow and expand. And I love that you did highlight that you actually did go back to corporate America for a while. So it was, again, that was still the journey, designing
Uh-huh.
and creating this life empowered consulting
Uh-huh.
services was a journey. It just didn't happen overnight. You took all your
Oh,
skills,
no.
ran, and there you were. It was a process of figuring it out for you and what would work for others and how that all fits. And it
Uh-huh.
really is, life is a journey, and a process and of perseverance, of choosing to move forward. Uh,
Yeah.
all those things are what
Yeah. Yeah.
life is really like.
And you said something there. There are a couple things that you said that I want to highlight. The first thing is, um, having the support system and the husband. Everyone doesn't have a support system,
Mhm.
but I will say that reaching out and expanding and connecting, as I was sharing, getting to know new people, you have no idea who will advocate for you, cheer you on, and support you in your journey if you don't put yourself out there. So now we're actually talking a little bit about vulnerability. But I want to share this story. I got a chance to meet a gentleman. I was at a networking event, got a chance to meet a gentleman, and he invited me to a meeting. And he asked me to speak at the meeting. So I had words at the meeting and I talked about the book. Now, my book I had was available for $14.95, right? $14.95 was the book. And a lady was sitting there. I'd never met her, right? First time, first experience, sitting in the room at the table. She says, "Hi, I'm so inspired by your story. I'd like a book. How much is the book?" "Oh, thank you so much. The book is $14.95. She writes me a check for $50 for one book. And so I'm saying that to say that there are people that are looking to cheer you on. There are people looking to find somebody to pour into, but we have to be open, right, and available, and willing, right, for that to happen. So that was the first thing that I just wanted to lift up. The other thing is that this is a journey. It's a process. And I don't care how many 10-step processes you read, it'll never go according to those 10 steps linear. And so you just have to be open, and you have to be willing to go with it. And so, one of the things I do also is I teach at Concordia University. I'm an adjunct professor. And I don't care how many leadership books I have, how many project management, how many marketing processes, all of that stuff. The first thing that I say is it's just a guide. It's not going to happen exactly like this. You have to know that going in, because that teaches us how to ebb and flow and to be agile and to be flexible. But if you think it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are going to be distraught, because it's not going to happen like that. It's just not.
That is so excellent that you point that out, because again, not that these books aren't helpful. There is great helpful information. I have read many helpful books, and usually it's, you craft it or you fit it into who you are as well, right? Because we
Right.
are so different as individuals and our situations are different. We don't all have the same personality or the gifts or the talents. So we are not going to, we can work real hard at all those 10 steps, but we're not the same person who used them the first time. So I love that you point that out, because there are so many tools that are helpful. But right, looking for that support or guide or coach can be really, really helpful, because again, we're messy and our
Mhm.
emotions mess with the logic and the facts. And having those people that in the support, whether you're paying them for support or not paying them for support helps clarify and clean out
Uh-huh.
the cloudiness from what we're used to, our attitudes, our perceptions, our filters. I mean, we are complicated human beings, and that's why it is such a process. And so that was excellent that you pointed that out. So if someone is interested in finding your books or your maybe even talking to you about some consulting services, I will have in the podcast notes your contact information and your details. But is there anything else you want to tell to those that might be interested in connecting directly with you?
I'm available on LinkedIn. I do have a website, which is www.celestecoffee.com. Krista will be sharing that with you. You can email me directly at lecs at celestecoffee.com, and I do work with individuals as well as companies. And so if you have a team, you have a department, you have an organization that you'd like for someone to come in and do some leadership development, coaching, consulting with, I would love to be considered for those opportunities. For me, this is just who I am. And I teach that we should be able to do what we love to do 80% of the time. Life Empowered Consulting Services is probably 95% of the time for me. And so, it's just what I do. So I'd be honored to continue on that.
I love that you're doing what you were created to do and where God has led you. And obviously, when you do that, you have much more impact on other people's lives as well. And then again, as you help people, not only do you just get paid, it's way beyond the payment, right? You're
It's way beyond.
The rewards to you personally, reminding you, I was made to do this. I'm good at this. I can feel good because I'm helping others and I'm doing what I was made to do. And that is very inspiring and encouraging. So thank you so much for joining us today, Celeste. And remember, if you need some more information or want to contact, look at the podcast notes and reach out to Celeste on your own. Thank you for joining us today on Life Empowered.
Thank you so much. You guys have a good day.